If you all stand, we'll open this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Okay, welcome to everyone who has to be here or is here by choice. And we'll next go to our mission and vision. Our mission statement is the mission
Of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student.
Vision.
Every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, prepping for successful transition to the next stage of life. Sorry, I said prepping. Sorry.
All means the same. All right, next item is approval of agenda.
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
It's all right. Did you get that, Chrissy? We're moving. Okay.
Yeah.
Third item is executive session.
I move that we move into executive session to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. To consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and the legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement, and to consider labor contract matter authorized under Section 74-206 1A and B Idaho Code.
Okay. Been
Second.
motion seconded. Roll call.
Chair Griffin.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Aye.
Trustee Benz.
Aye.
Trustee Barrett.
Aye.
All right. We'll reconvene in whatever we're doing. to our regular session, and we're gonna jump right back into it. Dr. Russell, if we want to go on with budget hearing.
Sure. Chair Kirkman, trustees, before you tonight is our budget hearing. I'm going to have Mr. Dewey, our finance director, come forth and share the 2026 budget, and we'll go from there.
This is more than one slide, right?
It is 2 slides. No, I'm just kidding. It's a little bit more than that. So not too long. I try not to take too much of you guys' time. All right. So just kind of want to reiterate that we are expecting a little decline in enrollment as well. We are anywhere from about 175 to 200 students, which equates to about 10 to 11 units. We did our estimates at 595, and originally we thought our units right now were 604, and then during the year we were able to do some corrections with our numbers, so we're right now at 606. So we still left us 595, and that's right now roughly around, if you look at that, 11 units. When we look at what the state gave us, they gave us a little bit more for some of the teacher salaries, administrative and classified raises. But the problem is, the big one is that operational hit of $0 increase. That's a big deal to us, because basically what that's saying is we need to try to find savings in other areas just to run the district. We tried basically to do that last year by shutting down schools and all that kind of stuff, and that we did do some of that, but reality is there's a lot more that this district takes in order to that, and that's assuming that no increases in any of our software or any of that kind of stuff. And we've got $1.6 million in software alone that doesn't do the math. If that goes up 3 to 5% at minimum on some of those, which is not unheard of right now. So transportation, we did a slight increase in the revenue, because the state used to do, back when the recession hit, before, they took $7.5 million from that money and they put it towards general fund, and we've been getting cut ever since. Our portion of that's about $345,000. And they this year, the one thing that they did do was they basically shut that holdback down. And so the same formula, but now that 7.5 holdback stays with us. So that's going to be good for us. Investment income, the nice thing about rates right now, if they keep everything else, is we're actually doing pretty well in investment income. At one point in time, not too far long ago, that was like $250,000. So that does help quite a bit to be able to get a little bit more investment income. I did not expect an increase in that, if that makes sense, because you never know what's going on with rates and what's happening with the Fed level and that kind of thing. And then because of our reduction in students and a little bit of teachers and everything else, we do expect some slight reductions in some of our other state income, like our state LEP and our other money, basically our PD money and our computer money as well. So you want to go to the next one? So here's the big thing to actually hit us this year, and it really kind of threw us through a loop. Other than, obviously, like I said, with our other money, which we'll talk in a second, the biggest thing that they have now, you'll see the 2 different grids that we actually have for. One on the right is our payment cycle, and that's the career ladder, and one on the left is how we actually pay teachers. Okay, there is another grid out there that's our psychs and that kind of stuff. There's only 23 FTE I just didn't bring it on there. Okay. The issue is this: when the governor put in and had the 6359 additional, they basically added it to career ladder, but it wasn't part of the career ladder language, right? And they basically said, "Hey, get this out to your people. We want it out there." So we did as best we could. Usually, we were roughly around the $3,500 mark per teacher, and that's about what we could based on the number of teachers we have on staff and that kind of stuff to be able to get that out. This year, they basically said, yeah, we know that this part isn't law, but we want you to make our minimums regardless. So what that basically does is those 3 highlighted cells on there, that we are required by law that anybody in those cells are required to be paid at least that amount. Okay. Before it was only R1, P1. This was the year the AP1 was supposed to be paid anyway. But the number, we were on track until they basically said, oh, and you better put the rest of the 6359 in there. You can look at our grid over on the left-hand side and see anybody that's basically 8 or above should be getting into the near AP1 category. And there's a whole bunch of those people there that are not 64, 427. We actually have a lot of people in that BA 1 and 2 categories up there that are down in the 13 ranks that are getting paid $49,000 that now get to be paid $64,000. So it's a massive raise, and it does cost us a lot of money. So basically all new monies that we're getting forward from the state are going towards that. And we've also talked about trying, getting a little bit more cost associated with negotiations and that, just to try to make what we can to get to the minimums of this year. So it really hurt us, and it really hurt people across the state. The only ones that this did not hurt was obviously Boise, because they have all the money in the world over there. And a lot of the small districts that were always 1-to-1 with the career ladder anyway. I mean, if you know, we actually have more than the career ladder. We try to do better than the career ladder with the number of people we hire. And we never really quite go down 100% with our numbers that go down in terms of the way, our teacher to student ratio. We're trying to keep those as low as possible. And that basically makes it so we have a little bit more teachers than what they actually give us. So it made it hurt, and that's one of the biggest things that we're working through right now, and trying to get that accomplished this year. You want to go to the next one? The other ones that we want to make sure we're understanding on, remember that we got 5% for the administrators and classified, so we pretty much tried to push that through to them. The health insurance is the other thing we got. It was a big increase in cost. And because of our unit decline and everything like that, it basically hit us double up on that. So that one was a big one for us. ABM, contractual, and a lot of the other stuff you can see there, that we have some things that we're working on right now. So we're trying to minimize what we can, but there's only so much that we can do contractually. And some of these we already have 2 or 3 year contracts for that have set defined increases. So we're working through those, but they're definitely hard. First year that I've ever had to go to this extreme to not have a balanced budget. We do believe a number of those that money will be able to, anything that's available from this year, we're hoping to push into next year. So we basically minimize our fund balance hit as much as possible. But one of the things I do like to show is, okay, what are we actually getting from the state and all our sources versus what we're spending? So we kind of had that understanding. In many years past, they basically take for beginning fund balance, basically do a revenue similar to what you see in the publication and in the end. And it kind of hides the fact that you're not balanced in that way. And I've never really tried to do that. So I try to be open with everybody. And this is kind of where we are right now. And hopefully we can find savings. We can find different ways, and we'll look at it a little deeper. That the minimum thing actually hit us pretty hard this year, pretty late in the game. If you remember that hit us in right around March, April, when they finalized that. We thought everything was good and in our legislative things, and they're like, nope, this is how it's going to be. And so we still don't 100% think it's 100% legal, but I think they pretty much said we don't care. So that's kind of where we are. And I think it's a good thing for teachers. Honestly, I'm not going to debate that. I mean, we'll get there, and it's just basically giving teachers more raise. We just need to find out where we can pay for it. You want to go for it? Next. All right. I do remind you, it's this second year of the supplemental levy. So we will be doing the same exact thing this year. Some of those projects, we kind of pre-spent on some to get the cost savings. And so we're just getting the money now this year for some of those things. But things are good in those areas. And we do, as you guys know, we have to get out before August if we're going to do a supplemental levy again, and what dollar amounts and that kind of things we're looking at from there. So you want to go to the next one? All right. Remember the $4.6 million we got in the supplemental discretionary that we had before. I just want to reiterate what that money is going for as well. We did use $1.3 million this year to shore up our lottery funding from that. $2.1 million is also used this year for some teacher and admin contracts, mostly teacher stuff in that one too. And that was when we did our reduction of both the block and the reduction of schools. One of the biggest things we told people is we really didn't want to RIF. And so at that point in time, we used that money to keep teachers that we knew. So maybe you had an extra social studies teacher in one of the schools or whatever we didn't want to get rid of. So those are the type of things that we held on to at that one. So we still have about $1.2 million we're going to use next year. And that was planned in there to be able to use some of those positions you see there. We did scale it down quite a bit, obviously, from 2.1. So we're bringing it down, knowing that next year we're going to either not have it or not, or we're going to have to deal with some more cuts for that area. So, which would hopefully the state will actually do something for us, but you never know with some of the voucher stuff going out there. Go for it. All right, some of the other stuff, I had already said that we have just slight decreases in some of the other areas. The nice thing about some of these things as far as a funding mechanism goes is that these areas, if we get less, we spend less, if that makes sense. So like Title I, if we get less, we just hire less teachers or we have less pairs. The one that actually hurts us on this is that IDEA, which is our special education funding, because that money is a fixed amount. We just lost 100 grand guaranteed this year, but we tend not to be able to get rid of our staff, because our numbers of special education are going up and we're already kind of understaffed as it is. So any additional any reductions in that area basically just flow right over to the general fund. So that hits us pretty hard on that one. We do try to make up the difference in our Medicaid billing, and our Medicaid billers have done an exceptional job really trying to increase that, and so we can basically utilize those funds and that. But there are more and more restrictions coming onto those that we tend to find. So and there's some risk there with some of the legislation that goes out as well. So we kind of have to watch out with that. I do remind you guys that we do have the modernization funds. We had the $50 million basically that we got this year. Our whole plan is to use a lot of that interest to be able to put into and use that for maintenance. So at this point in time, we're estimating $1.5 million next year in investment revenue. We didn't get the money in time to be able to get the full 1.8 this year, to 1.5 this year, but we're anticipating about a $1.2 million transfer into that fund at the beginning of next year of what was actually in there. And then that'll go for our maintenance, is basically recuperate our lottery monies that we lost. So, but everything else we did have, I did budget for $5 million for the transportation stuff you guys voted on last time, and some other projects that we have. But to remember, we can't use this for sports. We can't use this for anything like that. It has to be used for capital projects as well. So there are a lot of restrictions on it. And the stuff that we are hopefully going to use is really the money that we weren't counting on before, because we really didn't want to spend that $43 million. We wanted to, keep that as much as possible. So this is that area of before we made our other decisions of one-time things that I think would work well for us in there. And then the other good thing is we have no more debt. After September, we will no longer have debt in this district. I actually think it's a bummer, because debt's a good thing in some aspects, but in our world, it actually helps us in our supplemental levy side as well, because we have the House Bill 292 money that does put some more money towards that. So that 14.8 million that we had this year, we had 5.5 million that went towards that. So we're really a lot less. And if you look at anybody that looks at their tax rolls and that kind of stuff, I think it showed that we were a 30% decline last year, and we'll have even a bigger decline this year with some of the growth that's in the valley and everything. So I think we are the lowest that we've ever been. I've anticipated 50 cents per $1,000 next year, which right now I think this year we're at 65. When I first came on board, we were at 4.5. So we are considerably less, and the dollar amounts are less. I mean, we were pulling down $22 million before for bonds and supplemental levy, and now we're anticipating maybe a $9 million or $10 million levy. So that's so much different. And then when you look at the size of our district and the values, that is a little amount to help our students. So I think that's a good sell for our district, that we are being very fiscally responsible in that world. Anything else? All right, so to put it lightly, today is the budget hearing, obviously. And then what needs to happen, there are two different things, and I put those in the agenda for you. There's an amended budget. It's that third column over on each one of those sections, and what was in the paper in the publication. Basically what that is, it just basically shows you guys, this is the budget that we've had, and I've showed you guys every single month. If you remember, every month I give you what's the original budget and what's the amended budget, and all the fiscal responsibility. This is just basically the amended budget, so we can make that official. And then the budget for the fiscal year approval, which is the big documents. And then Chair Kirkman, I do need you to sign my document before you leave today. So I
thought
can
you
send
were
it
going
off.
to say paycheck or something.
No, well, that too. Technically, you are on a safe check. It just has to go digitally.
All right.
But yeah, so there's a document I need you to sign so I can send it to the state here soon. If you guys adopt the hearing, if you guys do not adopt the budget today, we do have to do it no later than 14 days to get that approved by law. So,
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, trustees, any questions? Thank you, Randy. Mr. Dewey. All right, if there's no questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is comments. We'll start with trustee comments. Any updates you'd like to, we'll start with trustee Benz, work our way down.
So I had the wonderful experience of being able to experience the end of the school year with Carlisle this year. Got to go on a field trip, the 4th grade field trip. They went to Three Islands State Park, Three Islands Crossing State Park, and that was fun. And one of the really cool things also that I don't know, I get to hear about Sherman because that's where my child lives, and they're doing some amazing things. And I know that that's also going on in a lot of the other elementaries. I promised that I would plug iReady because there's some really cool data that we can get from that, and the kids really seem to love it and are responding well to it. And that was very exciting to see the scores and the changes and the percentage growth at Sherman. So that was fun and exciting for me because I'm a little nerdy that way. But
Thank you. Trustee Burns?
So I was able to attend kindergarten graduation and 5th grade graduation same day. One at 9:30 in the morning, had left, came back at 1:30 out at Lake Ridge. They do a great job for those graduations. I didn't have them when my kids went through, but anyway, that was pretty interesting. They all went smooth, and they'll all be in 3 different schools next year. Those are my grandkids. So yeah.
I don't have any comments. Trustee Taylor?
Yeah, I just, this board thanked our district office staff at the end of the school year. I would just like to extend that thanks to all of our staff all throughout the district. It was an eventful school year, and I feel like our buildings handled all of the changes with grace, and I have just been very impressed with our district as a whole, with everything that they had to navigate this year. And then just negotiations, participating in that has really been a very transformative experience. So I just appreciate the opportunity to participate and the growth that I've had there. And that's it.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Do we have any? Okay. Just gonna check, see if we have any public comments. This is the opportunity for the public to come up to the podium and talk about anything you would like to talk about. We try to get you to sign up, but if not, that's okay. We'll give you a minute afterwards too. A couple of things to remember when you come up here. If you want to make some comments, you are free to make comments on whatever, not just agenda items. But we limit it to 3 minutes, and we need you to state your name clearly so it's on the record. And then you could either give us your address or what zone you're in. If you don't know your address, give us your zone. If you don't know your zone, give us your address, okay? And then we'll just go down the list here. Amanda Schrader.
Sorry, I wrote those.
Amanda Schrader, you're first up.
Hi, my name is Amanda Schaefer. My address is 1312 West Haskett Circle, Nampa, Idaho 83686. I'm the president of the Nampa American Legion Baseball Association. Just a little talk about the land swap going on, just for some consideration. The history of this ballpark goes back to 1914. Legion has been in Nampa since the 1930s, and Legion is a place that players from all socioeconomic statuses have the opportunity to play. Nampa Legion is one of the rare Legion teams for a few reasons. We have our own field. Players from all the high schools actually go together and play on one field during the summer, which I think is a really good thing. And while being manager of this field, we have been able to be good stewards to the community and allowing the utilization of Nampa Babe Ruth, Nampa Valley Little League, Boys and Girls Club, Nampa High School, NNU, and more. The Legion and the city of Nampa have been in good working relationships with field utilization, maintenance, and upkeep. And the city of Nampa and Legion Baseball has a very long lease agreement on this property. And we still have a lease that ends on December 31st, 2028. A couple concerns that just have been brought up by some of the board members and some of the people talking. Just wanted to kind of address those briefly for you folks. The school district had presented that Carla Behrens had to be excluded from communication and meetings due to including district meetings, citing that it was a conflict of interest. But after speaking to our attorney, this is incorrect because she does not have a pecuniary interest. As you all know, Carla is a longstanding Legion member, and excluding her from critical conversations about how to navigate the future of the field seems a little tough, and like she might be intentionally being ostracized. Parts of Legion's agreements with the city was to sublease to the field to Nampa High School, and we have always had a good working relationship with them until more recently. For a few years now, we've had some parents of the Nampa High baseball players that have made the relationship a little bit difficult. Unbeknown, actually, I think, to the district after some communications that we've had. As Courtney's aware, during this time, this is one thing we actually talked about. During this time, they've used Courtney's name as position as a threat to Legion a few times, saying that that he would take the field away, and potentially this is what's happening. They feel like that's what's happening now. So that's kind of a concern. I'm sure you can understand that causes a concern for the Legion side of things in that aspect. In speaking with Courtney Stauffer and Will Barber, Courtney proposed a 10-year lease agreement between Legion and the school district to be part of the trade agreement to ensure that Legion has a place to play. And I'm hoping that the board might be in agreement with that. And I also want you to consider, if Nampa School District builds a new high school for Nampa, what happens to the field at that time? This field's been played on for almost 100 years now. And it's more than just a field, it has a history of community. And so I want you to be aware of that and make decisions mindfully about, I understand that it's now, I don't want it to be a temporary fix, and then just cast aside when it has so much history behind it.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Scott Ty.
I'll try and follow that up. Of course, I'm with the American Legion also.
Pull that mic up there.
Yep, I'm with the American Legion. My name is Scott Ty. I'm at 8766 Rim Road here in Nampa. And I too wish to address the board on the land swap. I'm the commander of the American Legion this year. Here at Post 18, we're a veteran service organization. We've been in Nampa since the end of World War I. We not only serve veterans, but we serve our community as well. As I'm speaking to you right now, we have 80 girls from all across Idaho coming to NNU to participate in Girls State. At the same time, we have over 100 boys from all over Idaho that are assembling at Gowan's Field for Boys State. Girls State, Boys State is an American Legion program that introduces high school juniors to the mechanics of American politics and government. And it's been practiced by our post since 1935. Another program of ours is, of course, American Legion Baseball. And these are programs that the post supports and tries to watch over. It's always a challenge to watch over your programs. But as Amanda said, American Legion has been playing at Rodeo Park since the late 20s, early 30s. And we've been providing an affordable outlet for the Nampa's community youth. So we are community members, and with the land grant, as we found out about it, and I don't know if you've ever served in the military, but rumors, scuttlebutt, things like that is like wildfire to us. So I feel we didn't get this as an official notice. It kind of came through the rumor mill and up through the post that way. So the membership of the American Legion kind of feels that hearing of the land swap, we weren't properly notified. And we would like to suggest, because this is could be a major change that would affect one of our longest running programs. I said this has been here since the late 20s, early 30s. Everything else falls behind that. I would like to ask the board that the attached letter for the agenda to the city be paused, and that perhaps representatives of the Nampa School District Board meet with us at the post and meet with our membership at large, and to explain what it is that the swap is, and that allows the membership to feel that our longest running program will continue to have a home here in Nampa. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next is Tim Matheson.
Hello, Tim Masson. My address is 9934 Red Fox Drive, Nampa, Idaho. I am currently the head softball coach at Nampa High School, along with multiple kids in the school district. I'm here to discuss the land swap between the school district and the city about not only Rodeo Park, right? That's probably the main one that most have been talking about, but the fields behind it that current Nampa Babe Ruth's on. As most know, Nampa High School has not had their own field since conception. We currently play at West Park, which is a public facility. And what comes with that is a ton of challenges. Softball has not been as successful as other programs due, I think, to a lot of reasons. One thing when I took the job was trying to create an environment where we have our own facilities and we have our own pride and joy taking care of fields. I've known Carla for a long time too. One of the pride and joys of rodeo was taking care of the field. Currently, our players don't get that opportunity. What happens is we are a public field where different entities come actually waiting out the door after we're done practicing every day. So the work and time and effort we put into that field gets kind of destroyed after we leave immediately. And then we come the next day and fix it and redo it. And so we try to create an environment where our players can be proud of and compete. And we're really struggling with that. Not only that, playing at a public facility, we had 2 break-ins into our concession stand this year where we get completely wiped out because we lack the ability to secure the area. We lack the ability to kind of control who comes and goes within that. So the land swap to us as a softball program is super important to us because then we get to actually build a facility that, we want to host state tournaments. We want to host district tournaments. We want to have a facility where all of us are proud to come. And right now it's a challenge where we're at. So trying to find a facility which this would provide us as a program is extremely important to us. It gives our girls the opportunity to be successful. It gives our program the ability to kind of control how things go. I don't know how many times we've been in games where we can't control access for revenue for the school because it's a public park. And so we have people coming and going and stuff like that. So, the land slot for us allows us to kind of put our time and effort into it. We've had multiple parents' comments on, hey, we're willing to put the time and effort. We don't do it right now because it kind of goes to wayside once we leave. So just wanted to stop in and speak on that on behalf of the South.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And the last one that signed up is Kyler Wells.
Hi there, Kyler Wells, 598 East Crest Ridge Drive, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. I'm here to discuss the land swap as well. I am the current varsity baseball coach for Nampa High School. I'm also the American Legion Chiefs coach for the last 4 years. I've been a part of Legion for the last 13 years. Ever since I graduated high school, I started my coaching career through American Legion Baseball here in Nampa, Idaho. We have a long history between Nampa High School and American Legion, a joint effort to build a community with good baseball players. And one thing I want to address is my vision for both programs is to have a joint effort. If we do the land swap, if it's successful, that would be awesome for Nampa High School because we have a field to call our own. But I just want to let American Legion know that I don't want that to go away. I want American Legion and Nampa High School to be a joint effort forever because it helps build both programs and it's better for the community. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to take 3 minutes and come up and make a comment on anything? Okay. We will move on to the next item, which is our consent agenda. Any questions? Trustees, anything you want to address in the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes, and we'll move into our action items. So the first action item is our fiscal year, sorry, Dr. Russell, stealing your thunder.
No, you're
Go
fine.
ahead.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, first action item of the night is our fiscal year amended budget. You heard Mr. Dewey discuss the amended budget and some of the changes that occurred at the end as he was trying to update each month. He's here to answer more questions around the amended budget if you have that. Otherwise, yeah, happy to answer any questions that may come up.
Trustees, any questions? Further questions? Seriously? No more budget, no more budget questions?
No, but I do want to lead by saying I feel like we've heard the budget conversation so many times in negotiations that I mean, I definitely feel like this has been a big conversation, but because it's such a big part of right sizing, or I don't want to say right sizing, but moving to that salary schedule, I feel like we've had this over and over. So I do not have any additional questions because I feel like we've seen it so many times, but I definitely feel like this is important information and a lot to digest.
Yeah, agreed. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion then.
Okay. I motion to approve the amended budget.
Let's put a date on it.
Is that what it asks for?
Yeah.
Does it ask for that? Sorry.
Just 24, 25.
Let me read it. I motion to approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 amended budget.
Second.
All right, it's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Russell, the next one?
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, the next one is the 25-26 proposed budget for the upcoming school year. As you heard, trustees, Mr. Dewey kind of reviewed that. We are anticipating to see a little decline, so our unit will be a little bit less. We're expecting less revenue to come in. The state minimums was a curveball that was very difficult, as well as the $0 for any increase from the state, which was pretty shocking. And we've had increases. Inflation is real. It's hit the school district hard. So it's not an easy budget, but Mr. Dewey will be happy to answer any other questions you have on that if you'd like to discuss it further.
I don't know how happy he would be to answer any questions, but he would.
We could just make him do it.
He would certainly answer them, yeah.
Forcing him to.
Yeah, and I just think of what next year's legislatures got up their sleeve too. Anyways, trustees, any questions on this particular action item? All right.
Okay. So I move to approve the fiscal 2025-2026 budget.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Did you?
Aye.
Okay. We got 4 ayes there. All right. That passes. Next one is C.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, before you tonight, item C has to do with Union High's calendar. Union High is an innovation school, and so they are able to kind of negotiate their own calendar with their own staff. You'll see it mirrors much of our school district's calendar in a lot of ways. A few differences is that they do provide some exhibition nights. Those are the nights that are highlighted in yellow, where they have their students and their parents come in and share some of their learnings. So some of their compensation days and stuff might be a little bit different. Otherwise, it really does mirror ours a lot. I really don't see any other major differences outside of those kind of evening exhibition nights in there. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Mr. LeBou could probably help answer some as well if you have any.
Trustees, questions?
I have one quick
Trustee Benz?
question. So there, if you look down at the bottom, there's a key with the different colors, and
Sure.
graduation is the bright green.
Yes.
However, I am not seeing that placement on the calendar yet. Is that intentional?
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, they are still negotiating with NNU about what's open for the Brandt Center or not. And as of tonight, haven't finalized that date just yet. I think they're still in those discussions, and we'll anticipate doing that pretty quickly.
Okay. If we approve the calendar without that date on it, do we have to go back and reapprove it, or we're just like, treat it like a clerical update?
Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, I believe we would treat it as a clerical update that would be sent out just to the trustees and out to the parents once they are able to finalize with the NNU Brandt Center. That's kind of what our hope was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, but I will say graduations at the Brandt Center are gorgeous.
They do it right.
Really nice job. Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for that one.
I motion to approve the 2025-2026 Union School Calendar.
I'll second. Okay, it's been made, motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Dr. Russell, Nampa Academy Student Handbook.
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, trustees. Next item up is the Nampa Academy Student Handbook. Nampa Academy has a new administrator. I'm looking and see there she is. Couldn't see it again. Miss Jessica Stone is the new administrative principal at Nampa Academy, and she wanted to sit down and review the current handbook with her staff, and just you'll see there's some changes in there. She's happy to come forward tonight to answer any questions if you have questions about some of those changes that were made. But presenting that to you tonight, and happy to answer any questions you could have from that.
Trustees, any questions? I appreciate her taking the time to sit down with her staff over this rather than just pencil whip it.
Ditto.
There's no questions?
I move to approve the revised version of the Nampa Academy Handbook as presented, and congratulations, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Over any of the things that we've already approved? Okay. All right. Dr. Russell, salary schedules.
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, trustees, before you tonight are our classified salary schedules. You'll see there's quite a few in the board packet tonight. Going back to the review of the budget, the district did receive some money from the state, a 5% increase for administrators and classified. What you'll see here in your board memo is we did make an increase to the base salary for our classified around 3%. And then as they move through the years of experience, there is a 2% for each step. Again, much of these will just reflect the general staying up with the competition in the market to ensure that we can recruit and retain classified staff, which since we've made a concerted effort to increase those, we've seen a much improved applications and hiring and been able to do that. So happy to answer any questions if you have on those. I think that is, I want to look at Mr. Yarborough. CEP was, CEC was 5%. So
CNC, for those who don't know the acronym. Employment compensation.
change in employment, yes, compensation.
And that is, I'm sorry, that is something that it comes from the division of human services or at the state level, not us. That's a change this year, isn't it, for the school district? Okay. Sorry, I interrupted there, Dr. Russell.
No, Chair Kirkman, thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
any questions
No,
on this particular item?
no, on this one for me.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the provided classified schedules for the 25-26 school year.
I second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to administrative days and salary schedule.
And Chair Kirkman, trustee is going to have Mr. Yarborough come and share some information around admin salaries, and what you'll see in the board packet is an adjustment around the days, and part of that is because the district switched to a 4-day week, as well as some compensation, again, with the increase that we got from the state, and some of that is to better match some of the surrounding districts in a couple of our areas. So Mr. Yarborough will go elaborate with that a little bit further.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, thank you. Yes, there's two pieces to the motion. The first one is dealing with the number of days for our building-based administration. Last year, when the district went to a 4-day student contact week, we decreased the contract length of our certified employees by 15 days, a 185-day contract down to a 170-day contract. Last year, we left our administrator days exactly as they had been in the past. But with the function of our schools and how those work, the days now are longer from the Monday through Thursday normal operation of what administrators do. And those Fridays that staff aren't in the building, technically under contract, administrators were required to be there. With the way that functions, that meant that administrators are working more or longer and not getting compensated anymore. So the proposal is to right size those administrator contracts by the same amount of 15 days. Again, they work longer hours, And all of our employees on the certified and administrative side are under federal law exempt employees. So really the conversation of the number of days is really about the job and getting that done. So this is an adjustment to that to right size our administrators in line with our certified staff as well. As an example, a high school principal under our current contracts works a 225-day contract, which includes virtually all of June, and he comes back in July early, so they have 3, maybe 4 weeks off for the summer. By doing this and adjusting that, that takes that down to a 210-day contract. Again, they will still likely work through June and come back in early August or late July, but then those Fridays that our entire student-based staff is not on, they wouldn't be around. They wouldn't be, I'm required to be there either. So that doesn't change our staff days when we have staff and we have, we're open to the public at our school buildings. This is just right sizing those 15 days.
Okay, questions, trustees?
So how many more days are our administrators in the building than our certified staff?
So right now, depending on level, using that example, a high school principal at 225 days and their staff is there 170
Thank
days.
you. That's
So that
what
would
I-
literally be 55 days extra they would be at school. That really is untenable given the length of hours that school-based administrators work on a daily basis. So
And when we say 225 contract days, that's out of a 365-day year, correct?
Yes,
So that
that
also
is.
includes weekends. So
Correct.
realistically, there's only 36 days off a year
correct.
that the administrators are getting above and beyond those weekends.
At the high school level, I do want to be really clear. We have lower days for middle school and then elementary, but all of our administrators work extremely hard. And I can,
Yep,
having
and
been at
there-
role,
and
can tell you,
They're still in the building before getting things ready and still closing things out. We're just right sizing it for the
Yep.
time and the 4-day. Yep, I just want to make sure
Yep.
the community is completely clear.
Chair Kirkman, Chair Taylor, I appreciate that for sure. And I can also tell you, if on July 15th, we get a light speed alert for a student doing self-harm, many of our administrators that are connected to that are doing that work. And so I think it's a really big piece for us to go forward and understanding that even though that time is off, our administrators are never off. They work extremely hard. And this is one way to support and show our support for them.
And I have seen that. They are around the clock available.
Do you have on-call status in the district? It's just something that popped into my mind. Is it official? Is it like an official on-call status? Or it's like, this is your job, just in, you get a phone call, you're expected to answer.
Chair Kirkman, option B.
All right.
So.
Trustees, any other questions?
Chair Kirkman, I could speak
sorry,
to
yeah.
the salary schedule as well if there's any questions, rather unless you want to discuss that separately after, if you want to do two motions.
You can just jump right in there.
So one other piece that we need to do with our administrators, a few years back, one of our challenges in being competitive in the local market for school-based administrators was our beginning administrator pay was significantly behind other districts. At that point in time, I was not involved in those, but I've been able to piece together the history of that. We changed that our beginning pay for administrators then had a 2% step for the first 4 years. And then it went down to a 1.5% step for each year down, and then a 1% step. What that unintentionally caused is us getting further and further behind the labor market in our experienced administration. So we have a number of administrators who have been loyal to our district, have done great work, have committed to the district, that really every year they're getting less of a percent raise by being here longer than other administrators just coming into the district. The proposed salary schedules in front of you fix that to being a 2% step between each year. And then also a 1% to the base, or excuse me, a 3%, a 1% to the base was able to do that to adjust those salary schedules. The one thing I want to be really clear is that does cause for this year, some of our more experienced administrators are getting more than the 3% raise because that's cumulative as you go down those years. So that half, whole goes on to that person's salary for this year. We will right size that, and then every year forward would be a 2% step and whatever the CEC is from the state, so we can distribute that amongst our administrators and give them the same percentage increase, assuming that comes from the state, or same percentage decrease, I guess, if we look at it that way. So
When the CEC comes, is it specific for administrators?
it is. The way that that's done is they do a CEC base for classified and administrators, so that 5%. What the language of, so just one bird walk for 2 seconds, the language for the career ladder, which is our certified folks, the new language says that, again, they won't be adding new money in, but the percentage of CEC increase is now what that will be increased as well. So again, it does create some equitability across our entire system that way.
Yeah, and I think it's just really important to make sure that that's clarified, because I can see how some people might mean, me included, question that. It's like, why is all this money going for?
Right.
But again, it comes from the state
Yes.
Division of Human Resources allocated for specifically this.
Yes. Chair Kirkman, that is correct.
Any other questions, trustees?
No, I feel like we've asked them all just. to
Mr.
make
Yarborough, was that everything you had for?
And
you sure?
unless you have other questions,
Well, okay,
thank you.
all right.
Wait, did you want us to make some up so you could stand there? No, I was just joking. I motion to approve the NSD 131 building-based administrative 15-day reduction and the proposed administrative salary schedules for school year 25-26.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was basically two motions in one.
Correct.
Okay, Dr. Russell will move right on to Power School.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, after the discussion around the salary schedules, you'll see before you tonight are the admin contracts.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that one. I'm sorry, Dr. Russell.
Oh, no, you're fine. And we're also obviously in negotiations, so our teacher certified contracts will be coming as soon as those negotiations, hopefully we'll be able to close. But right now we do have the administrative contracts available for the board's approval. And again, those are tied to the salary schedules and the CEC and increases and steps and those things.
Well, how is this different than what we just voted on?
That's what a quick question. So the memo mentions the 10-day window authorizing the, the
15-day?
10-day window to
Okay.
return the signed contracts. Is that what we need to move?
No. You want me to answer the question?
Yeah, hold on just a second. So are you talking about the 15-day or 10-day? Because
No, so after the contracts are printed, once the person receives the contract, once the administrator receives the contract, they have 10 days to sign it
Oh,
and
I
return
see.
it in order to hold their position for next year.
Okay, so that question needs to be answered. And then also my question is, how is this different than what we just did? Go ahead, Mr. Yarborough.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, now that you've approved the salary schedule, what's before you in this second motion is the actual administrator and what their contract will be. So that spreadsheet shows that. So you're authorizing HR to issue that contract. The 10-day language is in state codes, and whenever we do that, we get that back all the
Okay.
time. So.
Okay.
So was that the same question that you had, trustee Barons? So I'm not alone?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Any other questions, trustees? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
I motion to approve the 25-26 administrator and director contracts and request contracts to be signed no later than 10 days of receipt per Idaho Code 33-513.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, now we'll move on. I think Dr. Russell, the Power School lawsuit?
Yeah.
All right.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, item before you tonight has to do with Power School. And you may recall around December, there was a Power School breach where Power School, which is a large system information service, which means it houses all the student information, was breached by a bad actor. And there was some information that was leaked out. After that occurred, we as a school district took the communication brunt of having to communicate that out, that there was a breach. Again, this isn't a fault of the district. It was a fault of their servers being hacked by somebody from an outside agency. Yet it is our students. We did inform folks of that. It just was an ugly situation. And with that, as we began to learn a little bit more about what happened in their system, there were some things in Power School's system that they said they had in their contract that they did not. And so some school districts across the country, because Power School is numerous school districts around numerous states, have gotten together to form some litigation because of some of the issues that happened around the breach and around the contract that did not have some of the security requirements that they were claiming they did have. And so tonight before you is a chance for the board to consider of joining other school districts and other school boards in that suit, or if you choose not to, then it would die from there.
So, Dr. Russell, question: if a parent of a student received harm due to this data breach, and we joined this lawsuit, and this is probably a question for our attorney, but nonetheless, would we be absolved of any liability because we've joined the class action lawsuit? And then it's on. Does that make sense?
Chair Kirkman, it does make sense. I don't know if I can answer that without a lawyer.
Well, but it does say that that's the point of it, is the cost associated with changing platforms, as well as indemnification from Power School for any future litigation brought against school districts as a result of the data breach.
But that's future. We don't know if no one up to this point has any parent of a student here brought forward an issue or a claim saying, hey, I've been wronged.
Chair Kirkman, correct. We have not had any
Okay.
information come forward to that. What I don't know, and I guess what I was interpreting your question is, in the future, if a suit comes, does that abstain the district from being a part of that suit?
That was my question
Oh.
also.
We're
That's the
likely a
question.
part of the suit. Now, are we going to be held liable or not? That's probably what we'll need to ask.
Yeah.
I'm assuming what this means by joining that is the Power School would be held liable, but again,
Yeah, okay. Well,
I don't want to be a lawyer ever.
I
so-
know. We'll reserve that question for our attorney, I think is best. So trustee Benz?
And so this attorney, the France, what is it?
Friends Law Group.
Yeah, the Friends Law Group. This is not the same law group that the district contracts with normally for normal legal services. This is the law group that is providing the counsel for this class action nationwide lawsuit. That's
Yeah.
correct? And where are they based?
Yep. Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, good question. So no, the district, our lawyer is Anderson, Julian, and Hall out of Boise. Franz Law Group is a law firm, I believe, out of San Diego, and they tend to take on larger class action suits. They were a part of the suit against Juul, if you remember, for the vaping, because they had specifically targeted underage children for vaping, and they brought a suit against school districts against them and won that suit. So they tend to specialize in this kind of law, and so they are the ones that, again, represent school districts across the country, and we
But on
would
a
join.
contingency fee, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, so a great question as well, Trustee Kirkman, Trustee
25%
Taylor.
of that.
No cost to the district.
Okay.
They are taking this on a contingency. If they would win similar to Jules, then they would collect legal fees from Power School.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? They typically don't take on a lawsuit like this unless they know they're gonna win.
Sure, Kirkman, I believe that's accurate. Yeah, I think they know what they're doing.
And it protects us from future litigation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
All right.
I move that the board participate in the class action lawsuit against Power School and retain France Law Group as a legal counsel for representation in the case.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, and the last on the action item is the land swap, potential land swap. Do you, now, excuse me,
Yes.
Dr. Russell,
Oh, go ahead.
trustee Barons, I just wanted to give you that opportunity. Do you need to?
Yes,
Okay.
I need to
Did you-
just,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
is that what you want me to do? So I need to disclose, as all these guys in here are looking at me, I know Carla, yes, I do need to disclose that I am the current secretary treasurer for Nampa American Legion Baseball. We are a nonprofit organization and I am a volunteer only and I do not profit. I don't earn a paycheck. I don't make any money off of it. So,
Kind of like
Okay.
this job.
what's that?
Kind of like this job.
Yes, yes. I've been involved since 1995 and it's just a passion I have.
So as far as recusal or anything like that, you don't feel it's appropriate to recuse?
No, because I do want to make some comments. I spoke with Courtney earlier and I do need to abstain from voting until we get that clarified. But yeah, I do want to make some comments that I have.
I think as chair, I think it's appropriate that you stay and make the comments. I just in my opinion, as far as voting, as far as the perception
Sure.
might be
Right.
just.
Yeah,
the
so
bigger
I
the-
will abstain from voting.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, trustee is going to ask Mr. Stauffer to come forward to share information around potential land swap for Rodeo Park.
Trustee Kirkman, Board of Trustees, thank you for this opportunity. I'd also like to thank those who came and spoke today regarding this. It's good to see active participation. We appreciate it and we're grateful for it. I'd like to thank both the Legion for their representation and also for the Legion baseball groups as well to be here, as well as our head coaches for Nampa baseball and softball. One of the things, just a little bit of background, if I may, that's included in the memo, we have had a very long-standing relationship with both the city and with Nampa Legion in uses of, in particular, the rodeo field, or rodeo park, excuse me. The Stampede Park is a separate park that is also owned by the city, and it services our Nampa Babe Ruth programs. We have spent ample time, or a lot of time, with Amanda, who is presented today, and also with Ron Duran, who is the president of the Nampa Babe Ruth, discussing what this may look like and some of the possibilities. The caveat for both of these is, as Amanda expressed, there were some concerns early on. I think we have mitigated most of those concerns. Obviously, there are still some that are there that will go because there's some unknown as of yet as we work through this process. But also through this process, I want to clarify that this is step one in several steps. This is not the culminating event of any decision that would actually incur the land swap happening. This is the first step to solicit to the city council of their interest and if they would like to entertain this as well. The second step, if they do agree to that, then would be working out the minutia of the legal components of making that happen, which would then be brought back to the board for further discussion and for board approval. Upon that, it would still also have to go back to the city for their final approval as well. So again, this is a first step in many steps. This is not the finalization of any one component for the board at this time. One of the things that I brought up that I'd like to articulate is both through the Nampa Babe Ruth and with further discussions with Amanda as president of the American Legion Baseball Group, there's been support across the board for this process. Yes, there are concerns in which we're working through those. And I think in the letter that you'll notice that we put to the city council, we've been recognized that we want to acknowledge that our desire to continue to work with all these entities and also put some possibilities and language in there would allow some deed restrictions as far as how the land was used. So we just want to make sure that that was noted in this as well. When we work through the process of maybe living a little bit more back history, about 3 years ago when I came into this position, I met with the city. They initiated some conversations because we work with them on several different projects. They use a lot of our facilities for all their rec leagues. And this conversation came up from the city in about 3 years ago when we visited about the use of city and district properties. So there's been some time that this has been on the back burner. At the time, we were looking at a bond, and so we did not have any desire to move forward with that because we were looking at seeing if we could build a new Nampa High School, which had included all the facilities. As we now have gone through that process, that was not something that our community was willing to support, and we understand that. And so that made us start looking at other options. A few months ago, as the board authorized us to start looking at how to use some of our land assets, this conversation got kicked back up again with the city. The city did express some concerns or some interest because of their desire to build a soccer complex, which they do not currently have or are in need of for our city systems. They're also looking for green space or park space that is on the eastern part of our city. Through that process, they kind of identified and presented to us, which is included in this proposal, their interest for the airport property. So that's why those things became connected, is that they had some interest in creating and developing a complex. They understand that our use of the land and Legion's use of the land and MBR's use of the current land at both Stampede and Rodeo Park is built for the baseball community. They felt that there was some good from the Park and Recs department. They felt there were some good opportunities for us to at least explore this option and present it. Now, we had to do that through a formal process. And so that's why we're here in a formal process to ask for that permission to engage the conversations. We cannot go in any further other than saying, hey, these are some things that we were interested in without the board's approval. So again, just want to make sure that we articulate the board's role in what we're doing, and there is a long process for this. And I'm sure there's additional questions. I'm willing to take those, and there's probably a few more things that we can clarify as well. But I know Stephanie, or excuse me, our trustee Benz has got her hand up, and I wanted to finish that part before
hold that just a
we
minute.
jumped
Go ahead
on.
and finish what you need to.
Chair Kirkman, I think this is a good point. There's more to be considered, but this might be a good point for questions on that piece, and I can see.
Okay,
the next
trustee Benz,
parts.
did you have questions up to now?
I do. So this is a proposed land swap conversation, but it looks and sounds very different from the proposed land swap conversation that we had at the last board meeting. Could you explain the differences between these two for us?
Sure, Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz. There's two distinct differences. Well, one major difference, and then there's a process difference. So number one, we were looking at an RFP for a non-public to public land transfer. In Idaho code, there's law that stipulates how you can do land swaps for public entities like the school district. There's a set of code for public to public. So if a city to a school district to a state university, to other city-based or government-based entities, there's a process that explains what you have to go through. For a public entity to a private entity, there's a whole different series of rules and regulations that you have to follow. What we accomplished in the last board meeting was a public to private land swap, which we went through a very process-oriented, bid-oriented process for that land swap. When it becomes public to public, you do not have to go through a bidding process. If both entities agree, then there is a process in which they can swap that land through city to city, state to city. So government agencies that fall underneath that public, there is a way to do that underneath Idaho code. So there's two different codes that apply to this process.
And Mr. Stauffer, because government entities are not in it for the money, is there anything, and I said that tongue in cheek, is there any requirement that the parcels have to be equivalent in value?
Trustee Kirkman
Or
Chair
made
Kirkman,
up somewhere of?
Chair Kirkman, the answer is that the board makes those decisions and the other entity makes those decisions on their boards, because the value is also in how it would help support the board's mission and vision.
Right.
So it does not have a specific monetary. They do say that it does have to follow in the board's vision and mission, and that they have a significant need to acquire or to release their property. In this case, just for clarity, both properties are approximately the same in size. There's a little bit of difference. The airport property is approximately 40 acres. There's 3 parcels out there. We're only talking about the large parcel. There's 2 parcels that the district would still retain as part of their ownership. The property that we're talking about for Nampa, for Rodeo Park and for Stampede Park, is about 45 acres. So there would be a little bit of increase of acreage that the district would be potentially receiving if all the parties agree to it.
And monetary valuation is not necessarily a component of.
Correct.
Okay.
But for purposes of comparison, I think that's an important one. What we have looked at and tried to be very purposeful about is making sure when we're talking about these things that there is good intentionality and purpose on both sides.
Sure. Trustee Benz?
And just to follow up on that same type of question and with the intentionality and purpose, so if we say, okay, send this letter and begin this conversation, would the conversation be limited simply to the parcels that were named in here? So for example, if they say, hey, you have 3 parcels, we really would like all 3, and there's this other thing, does it expand, or would you have to come back and ask from the board to expand it?
Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz, the component of this is the former of what you stated. This is what we're offering. These are the initial agreements. Is this something that the city would want? And is this something that the district would want? So if those things were substituted change, we'd have to come back to the board and receive permission. Again, the board oversees all of those properties. We could not unilaterally at our level do that without any board approval. So again, that comes back to the board has the authority over these properties. We're just proposing the potential uses and what it could be used for if the board so desired to move in that direction.
Well, Mr. Stauffer, you just mentioned that there were 2 parcels at airport that only one is in consideration. In the memo or in this letter, it says the district-owned property on Airport Road. Wouldn't that include all of that?
If you look a little bit further, it also stipulates the amount of acreage, which separates that.
So that's where that
That 40 acres
distinction
comes-
is going to
yes.
be made.
Correct.
Okay.
And the city is also, and I'm going to refrain this to more specific. The Park and Recs director is aware and has had those initial conversations.
And you know what? This is probably off the topic, but I feel like I need to be an open book here and just disclose that I do sit on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city of Nampa, but that has nothing to do with this. This does
Correct.
not have anything to do with planning and zoning. But just in case somebody sends me an email, that's good. Trustee Taylor?
I own no public land. I have no other free jobs. So I am.
Smart one on it.
Yeah, I know. Just paying jobs from here. So I grasp that this is the very preliminary. Yeah, very preliminary. So I'm not super worried about approving the letter to allow you to go into the conversation. My question really boils down to, because I don't own public to public lands and I've only ever sold private lands. Once you send the letter, that's not like being in contract with them, correct? So you will come back to us. They would have time to renegotiate the lease with Legion if they wanted to. All of that would be done and transpired before you brought that conversation back to us.
Chair Kirkman and Trustee Taylor, that is exactly the point of
What I
being able to
understood.
do this. We can't do a lot of those latter things if
Yep.
the board does not want to move
To
forward with
have you
this.
talk. So
It's just awkward because we have to do it all in public meetings.
Correct.
Yeah,
And that's
no,
part of the
that's
law.
what I-
That's actually
yeah.
part of the law when
but
it's
I'm glad
public to
because
public.
I actually think that, right at the very beginning, everybody in this room, you guys are the right players to be at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So what I believe that I'm about to motion, as you see me motion so many
I have a
things.
question.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. But after, before, or whenever. But I just want to make clear that I would say stay involved. I really appreciated the gentleman who spoke, who's involved in both. I'm a longstanding member of the community. I know these fields benefit all of our youth across a multitude of programs. So I like where our head's at, but I want to be clear, this is the start of the conversation. So I don't think anybody is late to the party. I'm really glad that everybody is actually here and in on the conversation. Okay, that was it.
Before I turn it over to Trustee Behrens, are there any other groups that use that field out there other than Nampa High, baseball, softball, the Legion, and Babe Ruth? Is there any other city community organizations that use it?
Chair Kirkman, in working with the Parks and Recs division, those are the two major players. Now, I do believe that Legion at sometimes leases it out to other entities for other things as well,
Those are
much like they do to it,
details.
but that's
details
not
down the
directly with
road.
the city. The two agreements that the city has for those two properties are with the Nampa Babe Ruth and with the Legion Baseball, American Legion Baseball.
All right. Trustee
Okay.
Behrens.
So first I want to preface that, I believe Nampa High should have its own baseball field and its own softball field, just like the other two high schools. I just want to make sure that we have looked at all of our options and make sure that, before we do some land swapping, that everything's been covered. So that's where I'm coming from. Whatever the best long-term goal for the community as a whole. So have we looked at other options? I mean, the two that I'm thinking of is the big property back behind the football field. That to me, that's a lot of land that could, and then it's on campus, and those coaches could go right out of their classrooms onto their fields and not have to drive, which is not good for our student athletes. And then go ahead.
So
I'll
yeah.
answer that one first.
Thank you. Chair Kirkman and Trustee Behrens, the short answer to that, and I know we've covered these, and I'm glad to do it in public as well.
We've
and I
covered it
appreciate
before
this.
she came
Yep,
on the
we
board,
did.
so.
Before.
Before you
yeah,
came on.
it's okay.
So
No, these are really
these are good
questions.
answers. Thank you for bringing them back
Yeah.
because we have discussed them, and just having new people at the table is
Okay.
very productive in that component.
Very.
The answer is we did look at that. We tried to figure out ways to be able to do that. One of the challenges that we faced in putting it into that back corner was about there's two things that are I think the most concerning. One is when you're looking at a baseball field and for softball, it's a one field for baseball, two fields for softball. And part of that is that the land is very tight in order for us to be able to accomplish that. And you have multiple levels of land. So if you've been out into that area, you have areas that sit higher than others. And to be able to excavate all that, our cost would be extraordinary to do that, well over $2 million to do a field for both softball and baseball. The second component to that too is that it also would open us up for further investments, which are not bad investments, but we'd have to increase our parking at Nampa High by city code. Right now, anytime you do a opening up a campus or opening up construction in that area, you have to bring it up to the current standards for city code. So there'd be quite a few of those things that we'd also have to do. Included in that, you're looking at having to bring sewer and the water out to those facilities, so that the costs are not something that we currently have in our budget. Now, we discussed the 521 money, which is that money that is sitting in the bank accruing that interest right now. It cannot be used for sports facilities. That is in the law. So we couldn't access the money that is built for improvements. To do that, we cannot access it. So we would have to go and ask the community and get the money to be able to do that. And it'd be a significant investment, a good investment, we do think, but a significant investment. And that's not something that, as we've talked in the past, that we were prepared to do as a board. The other component to that too, and at some point in time, there's been discussion about the need of having a new Nampa High. Now, that's not for today's board, but one of the considerations was to keep it on Nampa High's campus. We've heard that. In order to do that, we would need that space at the back of Nampa High to be able to build the new Nampa High, if that was the decision, and both the voters and the board. So I don't want to get the cart before the horse here, but you asked for some of the things that we've talked about. So I want to put that out there. We're not suggesting that, but one of the things that could be needed without having to close Nampa High down completely to rebuild on that property is you would have to build on that back parcel and keep the school open and do it in stages, if that makes sense. So that's some of the challenges that manifest in putting it on the property at Nampa High.
Okay.
Now, I could probably predict your next ones, but I'm gonna let you ask them.
Okay. I bet you're right. So the bond that did not pass, I assume we'll try to go for another bond. I assume, I don't know, maybe
That
not.
would be our decision.
That's your decision.
Right.
We're not going to have that discussion right now.
So potentially another bond, and it would potentially go out to where the first bond was, and you were going to build the facilities on that campus. So say potentially that all goes through and they are built out there on that campus, then what happens if we do this land swap now, and then that happens later, and then now we've kind of upset the apple cart?
Trustee Kirkman, Chair Kirkman, Trustee Behrens, I don't know if it upsets the apple cart, because the field still stays. I mean, the field isn't going anywhere. If all of those things happen, again, we're projecting a lot of ifs.
Correct.
And a lot of years.
In a lot of years. So first and foremost, getting to that bond, I don't even know where that is in this process. So that's several years down the road. Even if we were to have today that the community had voted and said yes, that's a 5-year process for us to have a school ready and to be opened. So your minimum term of 5 years. Now, let's say, again, just using kind of your question, what would happen to rodeo and stampede, I think is what your question really is. And my standpoint is what would change. MBR and Nampa Legion would still be a part of that. We would just be the owners, much like it currently is with the city currently right now. The city owns it. We would still be there. We would still own it, and we would still have the baseball being played on that facility.
Well, I'm looking at my stuff here. So that I kind of already asked that question. Okay, I think that's all I had. Just those two.
No, and I thank you again for
I
asking
take
those
that
questions.
back.
Oh, you have another one?
Yes.
All right.
So you mentioned the parking, that you'd have to, if we built it on campus here, we would have to upgrade the parking. There's no parking at Rodeo Park, so
Yet.
that's an issue.
Absolutely is. Chair Kirkman, Trustee Behrens, I'm very familiar with that. I've spent most of my life on that field. So I grew up here, and just a side note for those who aren't, I grew up in this is my home, this is my neighborhood. I learned a lot of things on that baseball field, and so much so that I've been grateful and had a wonderful opportunity to have two of my kids currently go through both Nampa High baseball and through Legion baseball. My one son's on IR right now. Hopefully we can get him back on, but he's currently a part of the Legion team himself. So looking forward, we have lots of desires to continue relationships and make sure that those things are ongoing. If we are partners currently are right now, or if we're partners, if we have the land ownership, that I don't think that would change. And again, the board would have a lot of those opportunities and voices in it. I would like to just remind people that it's not a decision that I can make, that Dr. Russell can make. These are board decisions that have to come through the board. We are here to provide you with the information and what we think is in the best interest of all parties for the school district and for our students and for our student athletes. So that's just something else I'd just like to make sure that we articulate, that there's not one of us in the district administration, again, is articulated in our email and our memo to the city. These are board decisions.
Trustee Barron, do you have any
No,
questions?
I'm good. Thank
So,
you.
quick question on the West Park field. Does the Nampa School District pay the city of Nampa any maintenance fees for that field for our use?
Chair Kirkman and Board of Trustees, the answer is no, due to some other agreements that we have had longstanding with the city. So one of the things that any improvements we do, but as far as the maintenance piece, they handle a lot of that. Now, I know that you asked me that question, but if you look over my shoulder at Coach Matheson, he can tell you there's a ton of things that they're doing to fundraise to try to maintain. The city has been good partners. Don't get me wrong. They've been good partners,
Right.
but it's also a public park that they have
and you
uses
got,
for.
so many different teams playing on
Correct.
it, and some take care of it
And some don't.
and some don't. Then when your team gets out there, you've got to make it work for your team. So
Correct.
I understand that. So
And again, the city has done, they have been good partners. They have upheld their component of the agreement. Part of the agreement that we have the use of both the West Park field and the South Park field for two of our softball teams. We in exchange also allow them to use our gyms for the rec basketball league. So those are some of the agreements that have been longstanding that predate, I think, any of us here with that relationship.
okay, any other questions for Mr. Stauffer or Dr. Russell? All right, I'll entertain a motion for this.
Okay. I motion to approve the submission of the attached letter from the Nampa School District to the City of Nampa concerning the proposed land exchange and to appoint the NSD administrative team to oversee and manage the potential exchange and report to the board any agreements for final approval.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to speak to my motion.
Okay, I was just gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask a question. So a motion has been made, it's been, and a second is on the table. Before we vote, is there anyone who'd like to speak to that motion?
Yeah, so my motion just really gives us permission to start the process. This is not a final decision. This is more about furthering the discussion. I do believe that the school district and the city have been good stewards of a mutually agreeable relationship. And both Legion and Babe Ruth benefit our very students. So I feel pretty comfortable with this conversation moving forward. I know that this has been thrown around before. I will throw out, I don't see this community bonding anytime soon for a school. I just want to throw out how that went last time we did approve to run for a bond. I think we got some real feedback that if we got real feedback there. So that being said, I think that this is a good conversation to start. But again, this is not a finite choice, guys. This is just saying that we are allowing Mr. Stauffer to have the conversation. This will have to come back to us many times over. This really just starts the talk.
And there will be many opportunities, I don't know how many, but there'll be more opportunities too, because this all happens in public, open public meeting, that you can come and you can provide comment, you can talk about whatever we're discussing. So there's always that opportunity. Bring the kids, bring the baseball players, bring the Legionnaires. Anyways, all right. So there is any other discussion on the motion?
No, Trustee Taylor took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, this is just the beginning. This just lets us start a conversation. This is not, we're not bound to swap the land at this point. This just is an exploratory thing. And I think asking questions is always a good thing. and having conversations is always a good thing, because you may decide maybe this is not a good fit after the conversations have begun, but you won't discover that until you have the conversation. So we'll talk about it again after the admin team has a chance to talk to the city and hammer out more details, bring us back some more details so we can discuss this in public again.
But stay involved, because you guys are who are going to know how this is going to affect you first. My boys are long grown and in college, people. So
And don't forget, this conversation will also happen in open meetings at city council. So go to the city council
Correct.
meetings and you can participate there just like you can here and hear what they have to say on that end. It's a very convenient way to have a conversation, an open meeting.
but also
That's sarcastic.
staying involved, because this board is very influenced by how our community is affected by the decisions that we make. So if we see something going wrong, you're speaking up and being here matters.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion
Do we
passes
need
also.
to record Carla as an abstain?
And one
abstain. Yeah, I need
and
to
one,
say
any abstain?
Aye.
Okay. And one abstain. All right. Motion passes still. Dr.
Carla,
Russell,
thank you for your
we are
service
done
and
with
your-
action items and we're on to your
Information.
superintendent reports, information items.
Yep,
reports.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, just a few quick information items. First has to do with the curriculum update. I'm going to ask Director Gomez to come and share some information around where we are with some curriculum and looking at our high school curriculum. Her team's been has to do with Odell and Gradient. Well, Odell is what we adopted. Gradient has some other curriculums underneath it.
Before you get started, I'm sorry, before you get started, let me just say, if anyone wants to leave, you're more than welcome to go. I just didn't want it to be so interruptive. And Ms. Gomez got good things to say too, so if you want to stick around.
Yeah, if you'd like to hear about curriculum, please join us.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, trustees. I'm here to give you an update. We just wrapped up our other curriculum adoptions, and we're looking forward to next year. So if you remember, in this last school year, we went through a 6-12 ELA adoption, and part of that adoption included vetting Odell for Columbia because of their longstanding relationship with Summit Learning. And during that process, all of the high schools decided they also wanted to apply for a partnership with Gradient Learning, and all of them were accepted, which I think is exciting. So we have alignment in the district for our high schools. And so just a little bit of background on that. Summit Learning was the partnership that Columbia was a part of for 8 years, and then that transitioned to Gradient Learning. They made some changes. One of those changes was that they provide a platform called Canvas. It's a learning management system. And within Canvas is several externally validated curricula. They're all open education resources. Odell is the ELA portion of that. They also have illustrative math for math, open side for science, and then several social studies curriculum. And so we've had some interest. Go on to my next slide. We've had some interest from several schools to use the rest of those externally validated curriculums that are found within the Gradient platform. In order to do that, we'd have to go through a curriculum adoption for the remainder of those resources. And so what we are thinking of doing is adopting the resources in Gradient as a whole, so that they can get started on them. Some of our smaller programs like Union, Nampa Academy, Nova would really like to get aligned, because then it makes it easier for their students to just access their curricula in one platform and learn the one system. And so we would like to do that. Like next month, I'd bring forth an action item to get a committee together, and then we would try to do that, wrap it up by October. If the committee were not to approve it, we still have a secondary math adoption that we would need to run. And so we'd like to do this one first, and then it would provide us some direction with what to do next. So that's information.
So when you say open platform, are there dollar signs attached to that?
So open education resources generally they are free, but there are costs associated. Odell, we still had to purchase the novels that come with that. Gradient provides the unit readers. And then Gradient saves us a lot of money in terms of curriculum. There are still some costs associated with
Sure. I
professional
would
development.
expect so, yeah.
Yes. So Gradient provides the platform Canvas, which would cost us a lot of money if we were to go with that platform. They also provide professional development and coaching for our leaders and students. And so that's an additional benefit for going with Gradients. So less expensive, still some cost. Any other
I like
questions?
the first part, less expensive.
Mhm.
Trustees, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
No, thank
Appreciate it. Dr. Russell, I'll just
Yep.
let you roll through
You bet.
these.
Chair Kirkman, next we have is our transportation services update. Just gonna have Mr. Stoffer come just go do a real quick verbal where we are with that. And
Dr. Russell, if I may, I'll combine the next two items if that's all right.
Sounds good.
If that's
Oh, I was
okay with-
hoping you had like sunglasses.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
first
I'm
it's
sure
this
you're-
pair,
you're
and then
all
the next
excited.
one you're like a different person. I thought you were going to make
Two
it
different
interesting.
ads.
Chair Kirkman and trustees, really just a quick update on the transportation. This is just more in line with the finalization of the land swap that we did for the transportation hub. We have an MOU that we'll be bringing back that is initiated with the city and with us. And according to some updates that the city has made according to code and some sidewalks that need to be put along Railroad. The developer of the land he is going to be putting those in, but it's just an MOU saying that we have a year to get that in so that we can be into the property. We'll bring that back to you as soon as the city council approves it so that you can look at it. But we just want to make you aware that that is coming. We've already considered that as part of this process and we have a plan for it, but we're just waiting for it to come back from the city.
Questions?
Yeah, so the conversation we had last time was putting out an RFP. Is this MOU being added to the, okay, sorry.
Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, maybe if I'll try to explain a little bit better. So in the sense of the RFP is completed, it is over. This has to do with updating facilities to meet city code. And the city code has been updated and it's part of the development of this property that they have to adhere to certain criterion. One of the criteria is you have to have sidewalks, gutters, and certain amenities that are at the frontage of your property. And so along Railroad, where our property sits, it hasn't been developed, but it's under an agreement with the previous developer. So we have an MOU to coordinate all three of them together to say that we're aware of it, that we know that it needs to be completed within a year, and the developer knows that as well. So it's just making sure that we're all brought in and we're not caught unawares of all those things that need to be brought up to it. Again, the city is going to entertain that. The city planning committee is going to present it for the city approval at the next meeting. Once that's approved, it will come back to us and we'll present to you what is in it, just to keep everybody on the up and up of what is taking place. So there's no action items. It's just more, again, just informational that an MOU is coming. There will be some parts that we've already accounted for, and we'll talk about it when we actually have it in our hands. So it's just giving you a heads up.
So, Mr. Stuffer, should we anticipate that every time you update us now, it will be on the facilities around the transportation, the new build? Is that what we should look for these updates to be? Is that you're going to just update us based on the facilities now that the RFP is approved and so these will be more of updates on if anything changes, of course, when school restarts, but more of like, here's how the facilities coming.
Chair Kirkman and Trustee Taylor, the short answer is yes. There will be some things in July that we'll be bringing to you that will be more about route specific things
Gotcha.
with the transportation. Those will be coming. Those will be coming more in action items, not an update. As I reported last month, we have targeted for the 21st meeting that we'll have routes at in your hands so that you'll be able to approve them in preparation for the next school year. So that there will be things coming as far as action items on that piece. This current piece, because it was so attached, we're in summer at this point in time in the pre-plan and the planning phases, but it's more so about finalizing the RFP was why we just put this one in here for that piece.
Just seem more like a facility. So yeah,
Yep.
we're good. I
Yep.
could have heard that either way, but yeah, just making sure. But yes, understood from my perspective.
Okay. Did you get both of those, Dr. or Mr. Stoffer? All right.
Chair Kirkman, next we have is our just monthly annual average daily attendance kind of enrollment report. Happy to answer any questions if the trustees have any questions on that. Oh, I'm sorry. We missed Mr. Dewey finance report. He's not even here. You
Yeah.
should ask questions because he's not even here.
Yeah, some really tough ones where his job depends on it.
Mr. Stauffer, would you, or Mr. Yarborough, could you, someone go grab Mr. Dewey, just in case the board has questions. But tonight for you is our quarter four report and a summarized report if you have any questions on the budget on that.
You're literally up.
Yeah.
No, your finance report.
I was going to give a finance report. So everything's great.
Okay, so, well, we're in the, but
Everything's
hold on,
fine.
we're in the fourth, okay, here's my question. What do you mean by great?
Great. Actually, when we're looking at it, pretty good. With salaries and everything is coming in under expectations. The only one we're looking at right now is we're still working with a lot of the transportation stuff because the bills have been fun and on both sides, we're trying to get used to each other and how the billing works and that. So we haven't been paying everything. And so we're still going through some of those things and hopefully that doesn't derail us a little bit. But other than that, it's not millions by any stretch of the mean. We're talking limited amount of money. That's the only thing that we don't know right now. Everything else is right in line with what we were expecting.
So you're wrapping up the fourth quarter of the year, right?
We are. So we have June 30th is our year end.
And no surprises. There's not going to be anything that's
But never say never.
a
But
sleepy
it's-
bill or somewhere.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's nothing out there that's gonna hit it. In my 12 years I've been here, I've never seen anything in this month that would all of a sudden come up and say, "Gotcha." Usually by this time we would hear the rumblings of something else. And so, like I said, the only thing that's really hitting us right now is we're still looking at some of those last bills and getting the last bills of the transportation contract in, and just making sure some of those overages are real and that kind of thing that we might be getting billed.
Just Kirkland, real quick question, Mr. Dewey. If first student doesn't get us our bills by June 30th, what's the process?
No, it's going to happen. They've already promised that.
So we will
So we're
have them
actually
by June
we're
30th.
trying to work through a meeting right now.
Okay.
I think it was supposed to be this week. It's on Thursday, and at that point in time, we should have the last of what we're doing and have everything going.
Hey, there's
So
still,
we should be good there.
there's still the word should and may. So by June 1st, is it June or July 1st? Are there provisions in the contract that if they don't get us those, or are there any liquidated damages, anything like that? If they don't get us those, and that's all spelled out in the, all right.
And honestly, because
But we're not going to have to worry about that, right? 'Cause they're
yeah.
gonna
So
get us
honestly, right now,
bills.
what we're in right now is summer school, right? So what we're working with has been done since end of May. So what we're working with isn't our regular work.
Right.
So within there, we just have some of the bills that were a little higher than what we were expecting. And that's what our transportation job's looking for. That's what we should be doing all along, is looking at everything and scrutinizing every single bill to make sure that we are not getting overcharged. And so at this point in time, I think we're doing a good job keeping both sides on the right page. And then we will know what we've got. So by the end of this month, we should know. By Thursday, we should have an agreement of what we're at, and then kind of go from there. So I feel very confident what we have paid, and so I don't see it anything much different than that.
And obviously this sounds like better accountability.
We've looked at our bills more now than we ever did when I was technically in charge of the busing. I'll tell you that much right now. We had a lot of faith in our previous contractor, and I'm not saying they did anything shady by any means, but it is one of those things that we were not able. We didn't have the insight as much as we do now, and what we're actually spending and that kind of stuff. And it's actually been a good thing to know where we're at.
Trustees, any other questions for Mr. Dewey? Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Chair Kirkman, now enrollment report. I'm sorry about that. If any questions on where we are with the end of the year and where we are with number wise.
Any rumblings in the big round building in Boise about moving to a different
Funding formula?
funding formula?
Yeah, Chair
At
Kirkman.
this point now, I know probably not. They just,
Yeah, trustees, I have not heard a lot and have not had a lot of updates. My hope for this next coming year is that there is something that's given towards special education. We have an $80 million gap across the state. And as you just saw, we're receiving less special ed money, yet our special ed numbers continue to grow. So I think that's something I'm really hopeful for. Would love another possibility of a funding proposal. So those are two hopes we can have: more special education money and maybe a new funding formula, but we'll have to wait and see.
okay. We'll leave it at that.
And last item here is our superintendent's report. Just real quick, I'm going to have Mr. Stauffer come up and share a little bit around board docs, but just want to do a public congratulations. The last day of school we had 2 graduations with Nampa Academy and Union High, and they were just wonderful to see again. I'm really proud of those students, and congratulations to those families for those students getting across the finish line. And I appreciate Trustee Jennings being there, and it was just a great culmination to the year and a great way to end the school year. So just want to thank you for that. Mr. Stauffer, you just want to give us a real quick update where we are with the board docs.
Chair Kirkman, Board of Trustees, we, after our discussion last month about the board docs going away, we have entered into agreement with Assembly. It's the one that we talked about collectively, and the board had demonstrated some favor towards them. So we are working on the process now of migrating all of our data from board docs into the Assembly platform for July. We'll let you know how that rolls out, but we have started all the processes. Our tech department and their tech department are now working on it together.
So you're saying it should be ready to go for July's board meeting?
Trustee
Or
Kirkman,
just sometime in July?
it should be by the board meeting. When we met with them, they felt they needed 2 weeks to merge all of our information. That started this week. So they have been moving our data. So this week and next week, all the data will be moved over. And then we'll start to get some access points and some training components that will be coming out.
Okay, very good. Any questions before Dr. You got to hurry up, Courtney, and get that that degree before Mr. Stauffer sits down. Okay. The next item, is there anything else, Dr. Russell? I want to make sure we give you.
Chair Kirkman, Trustees, no, nothing else.
Okay. So one thing I just want to mention on our next item, which is possible agenda items, when you're talking about bus routes, just popped into my mind. Is there going to be plenty of, when do those have to be approved, or when did you want those approved? The 21st of July? Okay. So is there going to be a long a time for the public to view those and provide comment before we approve those? I think, looking at this past year and how there's been so many changes, I think
Yeah, Chair Kirkman, the answer is as soon as we publish them on the 21st, they're going to be open for public to see because there's an open meeting.
But those are approved though, right?
Yeah, they'll be, once you approve them, then we will have them posted.
But is there any way that we can get those proposed out, have some comment, or is that does that process not work?
Trustee Kirkman, one of the things we have done is we had that committee that we had talked about with the board, and we've had some parents on there. We've been doing a lot of the safety. We've been doing all the safety reports for each one of those routes, recalibrating and looking at all of the efficiencies and deficiencies from each one of them. So we will have them out for that. So we've had we've had some parents as part of that process. There will be opportunities to have some of that discussion. But a lot of these are going to be based off of the efficiencies that we needed as well, and also based off what we learned this past year.
So there shouldn't be a whole lot of, certainly it's not going to be the way it was last year. Nobody would expect that.
However, I do want to make clear, you're going to show these to us on the 21st and want them approved on the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know that works. I just want to be really clear too. I'm glad that you are bringing that up.
The only time public comment would be is at that meeting. We could elect not to approve them based on comment provided at that
But
meeting.
what's timeline if we don't, so that I can understand?
Yeah.
Chair Kirkman and trustees, one of the things that's timeline wise is that, again, looking at where we start.
And we couldn't have them out, say 48 hours before. 24 hours.
They'll be posted in the board docs by code.
Technically, they'll be posted in Assembly, correct?
Yeah.
Well, but
that's what I mean. As far, yeah,
they'll be
not board docs,
available
and
to the
they'll be
public
available
to see.
Correct.
Chair Kirkman, trustees, the question, what if you don't approve on the 21st, then you'd likely need a special meeting to approve before school starts. So you could deny them at that point and then wait a week and hold a meeting on the.
But if they're going to be out 48 hours before, to me, that's even enough time. So that
I just want the public to have at least a little bit of time to see the routes, to see whether if there's any changes or anything like that. That's all. That's all I was figuring out. Trustee Benz?
So here are the concerns that are popping up in my head. Last year, there were some routes that looked really good on paper, but in practice, when parents took their kids out, they're like, oh no, this doesn't work. So and that was because we were creating routes from scratch. These routes are not going to be created from, these are just modifications, kind of polishing of the routes that already exist. Are there going to be significant changes in bus stops or anything that people really need to, that may cause people heartburn? Does that make sense?
Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, I think what I can do is I can send you, we have a process of the dates. I don't have that in front of me right now,
Okay.
but just to kind of answer one of your questions, these are all going to be driven and have reports back from First Students drivers before we even bring them to you. So they're going to be looking for any of those things as far as, hey, this area, we have a question about this. There's this that's going on in this area. We have questions. So that feedback will be provided and attended to before we bring them to you. So there's certain checkpoints that we're going to be going through that you will be able to see, and I'll get that to you so that you can see that. I can do that with the superintendent report. I can send you an item of how things are going to be going before we get to the 21st.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that staff will do their due diligence. We have a transportation department that's now into this and understands the role a little much better, and so on and so forth. I'm just back to that public input. If there was 48 hours, 3 days maybe, just get it out on our website, whatever, and say, hey, here's what's going to be addressed, just a notice
Sure.
of the actual
I'm
routes.
totally with Chair Kirkman. I have every bit of faith that this is going to be way better and much more preparatory than last year. But I do want to make sure, based on the amount of public comment received this last year, I just want to make sure I would agree 48 hours is plenty for me as well, as long as the community has some time to review it so that they're not reviewing it the same day that they would plan to speak on it.
That's it.
Mhm.
And then we still keep it on the agenda as an
Agreed,
action item.
as an action item.
Yep.
48 hours is very sufficient for me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Okay, anything else? Trustees, anything else? All right, with that, we will adjourn.